Okay, welcome everyone to this discussion. We have Peter here with us who will be answering our questions today. I hope lots of interesting questions come up. So for this one, this is our third meeting. We met on 21st, the first one. The second one was moved, so it was last week on 11th of February, and here we are today for our final discussion on this book. Okay, so, well, as always, we'll have Q&A. We will have some introductions, again, voluntary, if anyone wants to do that. And then finally, we will look to, well, we will hope Peter will give us some final comments on the book, or maybe he will talk about the 3 new books that he's writing at the end. I will also talk about a little bit about the next book that we are doing, and that's how we hope to. So let us move on very quickly to introductions. 10 seconds, not more than that. Preferably with video on. So I'll start. Hi everyone, I am Himanshu Jain. I'm a product and a program management professional. I have been running this book club with Nick Lambrou, Professor Dr. Nick Lambrou, since I think August last year, and this is our 4th book that we have done. Over to you, Nick.
Indeed, yes. Thank you. I'm Nicholas Lambrou. With Himanshu, we have done this project management book club because we like project management and we like books. I am a lecturer at the University of Westminster, and yes, we started on lockdown, actually. I remember doing one with some Greek dogs barking on the outside my window, but it was fun and probably better than me. So that's me in my 10 seconds. Thank you. Where shall we go next? Himanshu?
Anyone else wants to introduce themselves?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Achille Momo Anage. It's the second time I'm attending such a meeting related to a lazy project manager. I'm a project manager. Currently, I'm jobless. I'm actually looking for a new job. So I would be also happy if someone will have some opportunity going on in the world of project managers. Yes, that I'm looking forward to know a bit more about the project management. Thank you.
Again, Stuart Copeland, project manager for about 30 years. Nearly got the hang of it.
And an author.
And an author.
I've ordered your book, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Support your local author. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart. Franco?
I'm Franco. I have been working through my life as a project manager for oil and gas industry, and I have actively contributed to the pollution, and I am a volunteer of the PMI since many, many years.
Thank you, Franco. Anyone else? Okay, well, I see Clive is just...
Hi, my name is Clive, and in 10 seconds, I'm a project program manager. My last job was in Maersk Drilling, Oil and Gas again, and right now I'm doing an agile project management course, and I'm looking forward to to do my own consultancy, technical consultancy, wherein I will also use a little bit of project management in it as well. Hopefully the agile way.
Great. Well, thanks, Clive. Okay, well, yeah, let's move on.
Welcome to the new people. I see some new names here who have been attracted by Peter, nice to see you. We hope you will pick up the microphone and ask a question or
Correct.
say something about yourselves. We never know how many people have actually read the book, which is a bit disconcerting for a book club. But,
I have a quiz. I have a quiz. We can run that if you like.
Oh, very good. That probably will be fun.
Good, and since I'll be one of the judges, I won't embarrass myself by
Oh,
participating.
Now, one of the things I do when I do the lazy project, when I have a thing called the audience with a lazy project manager, it's 2 hours. And the first one is the keynote that sits around a lazy project manager, which most of you guys have heard. But I also developed then Who Wants to Be a Lazy Project Manager Millionaire that follows on from that. And that's just a lot of fun. So there really is a quiz. I'm not doing it now, but really is a quiz.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so let's get started. Who wants to ask the first question?
Can I just say before you do kick off with that, it was really interesting. So, because obviously this book was written some time ago, and the last time I read the book was in 2015 when I produced the second edition. So I thought I'd better go and read it again just to just in case you guys come up with things that I'd forgotten about. So it was interesting to read the book and for a very personal point of view, because I've obviously written quite a few books. 20 have been published and 3 more are coming. But I was still really pleased with it, as it felt really fresh and relevant. I know the book club's not supposed to tell me what you think, but it did give me the opportunity to reread my book, which I wouldn't normally have done. So thank you.
Thank you. I too reread the book, and I find it quite fresh. It does make me laugh also, which I think is part of your style, which has made it a bestseller. And I think that my students, for example, should be reading it. It is still fresh, and it is a very nice, light read. And then we can discuss whether we agree or not with the points, or whether project management has moved on or not. But I liked your reference in one of your messages where you refer to it as my little book. I think that was a nice way of describing it, but actually it is not that little. It is bigger than what it's like TARDIS. It's bigger inside.
Yeah, that was a point, because it was the little book was a kind of recognition that for everything else I'd done in life, writing this book, which is 30,000 words, it's not the biggest book out there at all. It did take me to the other side of the planet, amongst many others. It's taken me to 25 countries so far, which is just astonishing. And anybody who thinks about writing, I encourage them to write, because I think it's just such a door opener in normal circumstances, obviously.
Yes, obviously it has made a difference, but I also think that the doors have opened because it did capture the imagination at the time. This is around 2009, 10, 11,
yeah,
when it came out. So I think you deserve your travels.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's one of those fortunate things in life. I wanted to do speaking. I was advised to write a book. I had some ideas around the lazy project manager. And I managed to find a publisher, and the publishers, they were branching out into business books. They had a long list of titles, of which project management was one. And these guys had no idea what project management was. So actually, they let me write this crazy different book with dinosaurs and field marshals and Monty Python, because they had no idea about anything else. And so it was just one of those moments in time that came together, and yeah, the rest is history.
So are you saying that if you were to write something similar today, the publisher won't allow you to write?
Well, my second book about the PMOs, I mean, they approached me because of the success of the Lazy Project Manager. And I started writing this book and sent in a few chapters, because that's what they wanted. And they hated it, because I was writing in the style of a Lazy Project Manager. I wasn't writing in the style of these publishers. So no, I mean, I've been fortunate. I work with 5 different publishers. They're all different in what they want. I've also self-published, which is incredibly easy to do on Amazon and the KDP platform. There's a big difference. Obviously, if you self-publish, you have got to do all the marketing. If you go through publishers, they will do some of the marketing for you. So I think if I'd have gone into a more traditional publisher, if you sense, I don't think the Lazy Project Manager would have been born the way it was. So I do think it was just pure chance and a great opportunity that allowed me to write this very honest book. And I wrote it because there were so many boring books out there at the time, and they didn't have any stories of failure.
Thanks. Stuart has a question, and then Iniela after that.
I thought I'd kick off the question with something which I disagree with. So,
okay, fair enough.
So, because you talk about dressing to impress,
yes,
and I understand where that's coming from. I've been sort of freelance for the 21 of my 30 odd years as a PM. Very much dress in the way that the customs organisation works.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't worn a suit for about 6 years. Just wondering what your thoughts were on that, because I lead quite complex and difficult projects, but I do that quite often in jeans and a check shirt.
Yeah. So that really came about. And again, you've got to recognise my background is in working typically for software companies doing client-facing projects, of which you do many. At any given time when I was a project manager, I was running at least 5 or so projects for different kind of clients. And what I saw amongst my colleagues was it was like their projects rolled into each other. They'd be running a project and then they start another project with some of the same resources. And it was like there was no break point. So what I was trying to indicate in this was, it doesn't mean physically dress. I mean, I think I used the example of one of my colleagues it was a business casual environment. When he started a project, he'd come in a suit on that day. He was trying to create we are starting something new. And that's kind of what I was trying to get to. Now, it's amazing, obviously, in the last 12 months, how relaxed people have become about dress code and that. But I think the principle's still the same. You kind of need to differentiate the start of a project if you're particularly working with the same people. That's really what I was trying to get to.
Yeah. I guess my experience is I'm usually, so whilst I've got tons of repeat business, they are very distinct, and often there'll be gaps. So it's a slightly different environment. But
yeah.
So, no, that's interesting. No, thanks for that.
Yeah, no, fine.
Yeah, Iniela had a question. Okay. Iniela, whenever you're ready, you can ask.
Your mic is off.
Okay.
Yeah, Peter.
I will ask one question.
Okay.
Peter, in which extent you apply in your life the principle of your book?
The productive lazy.
Which is the aspect that in your life you believe most important?
I definitely don't apply it in my relationship with my good lady. There's no laziness of any form in that relationship at all. No, I apply it to pretty much everything else. And I think, one of the interesting things is people get confused. I mean, I know the title of the book, which the publishers put in, not me, was, to get twice as much done and leave the office early or something like that. The reality is, by applying the principles of what I talk about in the book to everything I do, I'm actually very busy. In a typical year, I'm doing 50, 60 presentations, training courses, consultancy. I've run PMOs full time, etc. I write books, and I have a pretty good work-life balance. So it's not that I'm not busy. It's a matter of applying the principles of that productive laziness to most things in my life, and that very much is around the work I do. What is the minimal viable, if you like, to a degree of standard, obviously, of what it is I do, and not to do any more than that necessarily, or is there still, can I get help in doing things? All of that I apply to everything, but if you like, my relationship.
In a sense, it is maximizing efficiency.
It is. It's working smarter, not harder, and it is that. you know, if you've got something, you know, I mean, just, you know, in the kind of presentations I do, every presentation I do is different in some form, but I reuse a lot of material. And whenever I create anything, I create it to a good standard, and I document it, and I put it in, you know, in my little folder hierarchy that I have, because I'm pretty old school. But I can grab information, I can put it together, and I can create something. So there's a lot of reuse of things that I do, which often comes up as something very, very, very different. And when I'm writing books, I read a lot, I store a lot, I put links away, etc. When I come to write the book, I start to consume it all back again and structure it into the book I want to write. So it's just the way I find myself sort of, you know, being effective in what I do. And my biggest mistake in my early days of project management was over involving myself. You know, when you've got to lead, you've got to control, you've got to manage. But I was in every meeting. I had to be part of every decision. I didn't delegate without micromanaging. It's terrible behavior, really, and it burned so much of my time on a really big project that I did. It made me, I was physically ill. But I liked project management, but I couldn't carry on. So what did I need to change? And that's kind of the heart of it all.
And Peter, doing so many presentations, you are meeting different audiences, of course. And I know that each audience has a character. Which type of audience you found more responsive to the themes that you were proposing?
Well, my least successful market is the Asian market, because there is a barrier to the concept of being lazy. There seems to be in that culture. In the Middle East, when I've done work out there, I sometimes have to change the title. So we're talking about, you know, the most efficient project manager rather than the lazy project manager. Again, is a bit of a barrier. The most surprising market, which I didn't think I would be successful in, is my second biggest selling market, is Germany. And I was really surprised about that to begin with, but no, they'd like it. And in fact, there's a German language version of my first 2 books. I think, you know, the most, I don't know what the most, Scandinavian countries really get it for some reason. They love this idea of doing the right amount of work for them to deliver good deliverables. So I think Scandinavia has been very, very popular as well. Germany is probably the most surprising one though.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, my pleasure.
Hi, Peter. Sorry,
Hi,
my computer froze. I was trying to unmute myself and it just wouldn't work. Sorry, I was hearing you guys, but I just couldn't say anything.
Okay, but you're on now.
Yes. So I found the when you talked about intelligence of laziness, I found that chapter really, really interesting and intriguing, especially when you use the example of the Prussian army and the general, and how you put use the quadrants to describe it. It's been bugging me, and it's something I've had to be thinking about for a long time now, because I'm wondering, is it that for people who are a bit forward, resourceful in the organization, trying to, you know, step up to take responsibilities, is it that for people like that we should begin to tone down? Because it feels like if you're that kind of person, you're not categorized in that box that receives promotion, or that, because they feel like, I don't know. So I find it a bit conflicting, especially in terms also with my personal life and my work experience. So I just wanted a little bit, you know, more of what you were thinking, what your thoughts were when you were writing that.
Well, when I do the keynote, when I talk about that point, and people do love that quadrant, that 4-box summary. You know, I talk about the group that aren't, are not particularly hardworking, not particularly smart. You know, I joke that they're mostly harmless. And I'm sure if you were a field marshal in the Prussian army at the end of the 19th century, they would be a lot nearer the front line of the battle, you know, the army when they went into battle, because they were cannon fodder, which is a bit rude about them, but people like that kind of humor. The people who are, very hardworking, but not necessarily the smartest, they haven't quite got to this concept yet. They're the ones that are potentially disruptive. They're the people that, often audiences start nodding at this point. They're the people that are, they're going to a meeting, they've always got their own ideas, they want to go off agenda. Somehow, 5 minutes after the meeting, they could send an email through with 28 bullet points on. They're kind of they're trying to take it off, and you have to deal with it. It's not malicious, it's just in their nature. But I always talk about the really interesting is the other side of the quadrant, because the hardworking, the intelligent people, hugely valuable, and they will get stuff done, no doubt about that. But the leaders, really, this is what it's about. Leaders are the people who apply that kind of working smarter, not harder, that kind of application of intelligence of finding the most efficient way to work and leading everybody else to success. And that's really what that is trying to say. It's about bringing you around to the right-hand side, the top right-hand side, and say, well, as project managers, you know, when I started out, and I talked about that big project just now, when I started out, I would have put myself in the bottom right-hand quadrant. I was working really hard, reasonably intelligent, but it wasn't the most efficient way I was working. As I taught, as I learned the hard way after that 2-year plus project. I couldn't carry on like that. So that aspiration to moving into the kind of the lazy,
and smart
working,
box,
yeah. So that's what it's all. That's what the message is behind it.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, Peter, I have a question. I think I already asked a question last week, but Nicola tried to answer the question. They actually advised me to ask it today to the owner of the book. Actually, it's my pleasure. Peter, the question is simple. Actually, I think it was Nicola or Jane who mentioned this. The topic about being a productively lazy project manager and being a lazy project manager. So I just wanted to know exactly what are the difference. I know that I have some let's say some answer already last week from Nicola, but I would like to hear also from you.
Well, a lazy project manager doesn't put the effort in. A lazy project manager is entirely dependent on their team, and they offer no leadership, no insight, no support. That's bad. That's really, really bad. And I have met people like that. They live off the success of the team, but they don't contribute to the success of the team in any way. A productively lazy project manager recognizes that there is a lot of, it is the Brontosaurus. They put it, or the anti-Brontosaurus, they put a lot of effort into the front end. They set the foundations for project success. They engage in setting the right standard for the project. They work with the project sponsor. They set up the right communications. They control scope, all of those things. And at the end of it, they learn all the lessons. They do retrospectives or lessons learned and lessons shared, etc. But in the middle of the project, their job really is to oversee the project team delivering it, because it is the project team that are going to do the real work at this point. And the project manager at this point should be, I joke about the comfy chair. They don't just sit in that comfy chair and do nothing. But the lesson I learned was, you need to be involved where you need to be involved. You need to offer support when there are challenges. You need to make decisions, and you need to constantly elevate your view to see where this project is going, and not be down in the detail when suddenly something goes wrong. You have no way of reacting to it. So, the productive laziness comes from the efficient way of leading your team during the major part of the project, the middle part, the kind of, where the real work gets done.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you so much. I think I will know more about it when I'll have the chance to go through the book actually.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I would love, following from that question, if I may, I would love to talk with you about the football managers that are out there, because some of them appear to be very passionate and all that, and some of them are very laid back. I say this because I am Greek and I am also a Leicester City supporter, and Ranieri was actually fired by the Greeks because we lost to the Faroe Islands, which it's paining me even now to repeat and all that. So he was free, and Leicester then picked him up, and they won the championship with someone who was sitting on the side and actually not appearing to be emotional at all during the games. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago? And yet he did something remarkable by essentially, I don't know, calming everybody and teaching them how to win. So was he lazy or was he productive lazy? I really do not know. This is a footballing question more than...
It's fascinating. So, right. So, for my sins, I'm a Nottingham Forest supporter. So I can go back to the great days of Brian Clough. And Brian Clough, for the most part, apart from when he lost his temper, but Brian Clough was very passive during football matches because his view was, at that point, there's not much I can do. You know, if there's injuries, etc., I will make decisions. But fundamentally, if I have not prepared the team at the start of the match, I haven't done my job. So he was visibly lazy to a degree during matches, but you know, all the work had gone on beforehand, and he kind of set the scenes. I did think there's different ways of people react to this. You know, I think, you know, I've seen, yeah, when I used to lead projects anyway, I was a fairly passive, calm sort of person, even in the crisis. That was just my style. I've seen other project managers who are very, very animated, but it doesn't mean that they're not productively lazy either. And I can see that behind the scenes. I think that's more to do with personalities. And with football coaches, I think it's fascinating. You know, they're successful when everything meshes together, doesn't it? And in the Leicester City, that great year, it all came together, and there was this. It comes down to belief in the team, wasn't it? That team believed that they couldn't lose that year. Yeah, there were other things that happened. We know that other teams were faltering, etc., but they still took that opportunity and they had that belief. And that's, you know, I think with football and many other sports, that's why teams have long runs. And the moment they falter, as Liverpool have, you know, recently, for example, then they begin to be in a bit of trouble.
Indeed, yes. And what I think we are saying is that it's not very easy to distinguish between the lazy and the lazy productive.
No.
Because someone may appear not to be doing anything because all you are seeing is the times when the TV is there or the equivalent.
Yeah. And the culture of the organization. I mean, I worked for one organization, and in the early days, I didn't have a great reputation with the kind of senior management, because I was someone who'd like to come in early. I like to get, you know, I did the work I needed to do, and I wanted to I had a young family, and I wanted to get away. So I was never there to stay late. And yet the culture of that company at that time for the senior management was, you stay late, you work late, you're visible. The kind of big conversations take place at 6, 7 o'clock at night. And I wasn't having any of that, because I was delivering my projects, as far as I was concerned, successfully. And over time, it was kind of proven. But I know, to begin with, I had a kind of a negative reputation because I wasn't putting in the hours, and I found that quite frustrating for a while.
We have a question from Stuart and then Clive.
Okay.
Thank you, Nicola, for using the football image to make me understood it.
He's one of my students, so anything he says does not count.
Having said I wasn't sure about dressing to impress, so I agree with everything else in the book.
Okay.
It occurred to me that I've done some process improvement direct work with customers, and before I went freelance, and the same approach can be applied there, because in any process you ask whether it should be done at all, and then if it has to be done, which parts can I knock out of it. So have you ever been drawn into that area?
Well, no, yes, I've been involved in most parts of a business and kind of, you know, standardizing and stuff like that, and trying to make them more efficient and so forth. It really was why the second book, The Lazy Winner, was produced, because it kind of extended the concept out to a non-project management world. And the heart of that is really asking the right questions of, you know, do I need to do something? Do I want to do something? That really gives you a good, you know, those two questions balance and give you a right, you know, what is my attitude to this? And then, am I the right person to do it? Is there someone else who could do it better? And, you know, stuff like that. So yes, I have been involved. And a lot of the techniques, I think, are, you know, they're representative across a large range of activities inside organizations. I mean, the best description of the book, I think, is someone said it was, you know, it's like it was managing yourself whilst you're managing projects. Well, manage yourself while you're doing other things, I think, works as well. So yeah, the principles are solid, I think, for the way you approach work. What was the next question then?
Clive?
Sorry, can I?
Hi.
Yes, Peter, just, it might sound a bit silly, the question I'm going to ask. Did you find were you offended somehow by the title of your book, by some things you published? Because, you know, sometimes some people, it can be a sensitive topic, you know. So I know that I have more or less 15 years of professional experience working with internationals. So I think, did you ever feel that some people were offended by the title of the book? Because obviously somebody, even when somebody knows that he's a bit lazy and he's cleaning the street or something, he wouldn't like to hear these words. So is that word not sensitive for you? Did you were offended by the title of the book or something like that?
I took the approach of insult your profession and get on in life. You know, look, it's a hook. And most people get past the hook very, very quickly, but it is a hook. And yes, I have offended. I was at one of the PMI's global conferences this one's in Dallas, and I was confronted by a very angry, large American gentleman who was he was upset on two reasons. He was upset because I didn't have PMP after my name on the cover. And I told him tough because I had a number of qualifications and that wasn't what it was about. And I did mention PMP in the book. But the main thing he was upset about that I was insulting his profession and the fact that he had, you know, we worked really, really hard. And so, you know, I think he'd just taken the title and taken offense at that point. I just encouraged him to read the book. I'm pretty certain he didn't. So yeah, that can upset people, but sometimes when you want to, you know, make an impact, that happens.
And Peter,
no doubt, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think Peter, he should have read your next book. Then it's you know, the one about bollocks. I think that would have really offended him, isn't it?
It is, not there, yeah. Yes, that will definitely offend people.
Yeah. So the question I had for you, Peter, was basically about, I think we discussed this last week as well. So there was two things about laziness, and when it came to team roles, with Belbin's team roles, and also with leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So the lazy project manager in your book, how would you rate him with respect to Belbin's roles, and also with respect to leadership? You know, with the various types of leadership that you have, laissez-faire, country club style, or you know, a leader that is really involved. And so how would you rate the lazy project manager in your case to be, you know, with respect to Belbin's roles and with respect to leadership roles?
I don't know if I can directly link it to that. I mean, as I said earlier on, people have different styles and there's different cultures in the organization. It really is a matter of like, well, look, as you as a project manager, particularly think about the work you're doing, you know, and, you know, we know projects are up and down, they're exciting, they're challenging. Sometimes you've got to be proactive, sometimes you've got to be reactive. But you know, it's kind of going back to the heart of where I learned the most lessons, which is the fact that, you know, there are certain ways you need to behave in projects that are, you know, more productive than others. You know, one of the things that triggered the book, apart from, you know, my desire to speak and being advised to have a book, was I was running a PMO at the time with just over 100 project managers across Europe. And I could easily see, with the systems and data that we had, that half those project managers were being reasonably successful. They weren't perfect, they're reasonably successful. And they were doing on average typical hours per week, you know, 40 hours, 45 hours. Now, projects go up and down, as I said, but on average. The other half were being just as successful, but they were doing on average 60, 70, 80-hour weeks in sometimes, which is just crazy from my point of view. And that's where I delved into what was the behavioral difference. It was all about delegation. It was all about the way they communicated. It was all about trust. It was all about, you know, presence at meetings and not allowing their team to work semi-independently. So by drawing on all of that, it's just, that sits behind, I think, any kind of leadership style you have. Unless you're a manic micromanager, then, you know, that's never going to work.
I like the word semi when you were talking, semi independently, and it is that seminess that I think is the point, and I think that's where the dinosaur also comes in, that the project itself has different and requires different styles as you go along, and I think that is what your stories sort of unravel into.
And the book, you know, if you think about the book was not a presentation, but the book was a concept of actually teaching people before it was a book. And I use a lot of, you know, visual representation in my presentations. You know, picture superiority is huge. It's part of the sort of presentation skills training I do. So, you know, from that, you know, I had some strong images. The dinosaur was one of them already, you know, and I wanted to bring that into the book. And I'll be honest, the books I'd read up to that point, you know, solid project management books, so they had two faults as far as, well, three faults. One, they were too long. Two, they were dry and dull, and 3, they didn't capture me as a reader. And 3, they had no statements of honesty. There were no books I'd read up to that point that actually talked about project failure, apart from a definition of, you know, category, if you like. But there was no talks about the author had done something wrong in the past. Whereas I had a catalogue of failures behind me. I thought, this is more valuable to share. And that's kind of where the little tiny case studies came from.
And I think they did make a difference, if I may. But just because you touched on that, who did draw this dinosaur? I'm dying to ask that question. Whose drawing is that? Is that the publisher's or is that yours?
There is somewhere. There is a. Oh, there we go. The dinosaurs. Yes. There is a terrible hand drawing that I put together. I'm fortunate that the fact the publishers went off and found a proper artist to actually create these dinosaurs for me, and they look fabulous. I love the graphics in the book. I love the simplicity of them, and they're perfect.
And yet you apologize for putting your 2x2s until the very last one, where you say you now see, where you claim that, not you claim, you state finally that you like them.
Yeah, I do really.
I do also. That's why I'm asking you, why did you apologize for them?
Well, I seem to be using them a fair bit during the book, but you know, behind a lot of what I do, you know, I apply the KISS philosophy a lot. You know, keep it simple in pretty much everything I do, and I try to. If you can do that, this is a very simple visual that we can see here. It's 2 important lessons about the project. It's not complex, and people can absorb that. They can, they can understand it, and you can talk to it, as opposed to very complicated diagrams. So, yeah, I was grateful. The artists who did this, and I can't remember their name now, did a great job as far as I'm concerned.
Indeed, yes.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks. Carol has a question. Carol, would you like to ask the question?
Yes, thanks. Hi, Peter. So I like and I agree with the point, empowering the team members and delegating as much as you can and so on. What would you suggest, though, in the kind of scenario where you've maybe got a team where they themselves are quite stretched, as quite as often the reality across multiple competing projects? So how best to try to delegate and empower the teams? As much as the PM wants that to happen, sometimes their priorities are elsewhere, and they react more to a bit of prodding as opposed to being empowered and going off and working together.
Well, yes, empowerment, but there's got to be some sort of interaction and leadership for sure. So it's not just complete trust. I'm a strong believer in the collaborative platform that you can now have, and the kind of technology that can help you with that. I think with regards to that, I think there are. I'm doing a lot of work in the area of project team performance management right now. So I think that's one area. Is there's a lot of measurement out there on the kind of the hard project activities. How's this task going? What effort's been put in? What progress has been made? What costs? All of that. But there's not a lot of measurement around the, if you like, the team sentiment, the team dynamics. And that's the work I'm doing with an organization called Perflow at the moment. Is we're exploring that specifically at the moment of can you engage and validate that on a kind of micro pulse regular way with your project team to get insight to overall how does the team feel? Because we all know that if you've got a really good team working together, they can overcome pretty much anything. So I think that's the first thing. The other thing I always talk about is what I refer to as visibility of purpose. You're right. You've got project team members. They might have a day job. They might have 2 or 3 other projects they're working on. You've got to get them to buy into your project, because you're right. If I've got a resource that's in, somewhere in South America, for example, and they're supposed to be working on my project, and I'm thousands of miles away, and their manager sits, 150 yards down the corridor. Well, who are they going to prioritize? They can prioritize the manager. Of course they are. I mean, that's the guy who can, or a lady who can actually get them fired or promoted. Yeah. But if you can get people to buy into what the project's all about, and that's part of, I think, a great project management leadership is empowering, or not empowering, inspiring rather, that we are trying to achieve this. I can't do it without you. You're part of the team. And if you've got that, then people will prioritize, I found.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
A lot of the book I found was managing essentially upwards, and you do that very well by, for example, stopping scope creep. But the people side, I think what Carol is saying resonates quite a lot, and I think that's where we are going. And I am self-conscious that Stuart is in the room, who has written a book which has the word people as part of the title itself, and I will hazard that it does discuss the effort of someone who is essentially both in the team and also has a normal job, and what is the cost of that. That is what I understood his book is, but I am very scared now because I haven't read the book.
I think he's about to tell us.
But yeah, so we use the term projects as homework, which something doing a project 15 years ago, massive contact center consolidation, and somebody came into the room who I've actually just sent a copy of the book to, who said, "Oh my God, another project we're doing is homework." And that set me thinking, because most of my life I've spent working with people who are doing projects as homework, and there is a way that you, as Peter said, there are a whole series of techniques, using the methodology, using emotional intelligence, all that sort of stuff that enables those projects to be successful without burning people out. But that's just crazy, I guess. Ahead of you reading it, Nicholas.
It has to come from the USA. It's out of print here. I don't know, but
I'll send you a copy.
No, I prefer to buy it. Thank you. I have bought it actually. Thank you for that. But I think, Peter, we are touching for what I think is the success of your book. In that, I think you are actually writing about emotional intelligence at a time when emotional intelligence itself is starting to become part of our understanding of how it is that you manage a company. And a lot of the stories that I see here, and I love them. I think storytelling, we lose a lot in project management by not being storytellers. When the books are written, these dry academic books, as you say, they've got case studies, and there maybe you can see a bit of failure, but then we say, and what did he do wrong, or whatever is the academic exercise. So the manner that you came through, I think, at that time was fresh, and I think you were showing not only what emotional intelligence is without mentioning it as such, but you were also showing your own emotions, that you as a project manager do have problems in your head. You're not happy with everything you're doing. The fact that you're doing it doesn't really mean that it was successful. And I was particularly intrigued by one of your last case studies, that lessons learned thing. For those of you who are reading the book, I do have the old version here, but because the new version is stuck in the university.
Okay.
On my page 106, where you talk about lessons learned and the fact that you had the projects that you did not like, and you were very unhappy with.
Oh God, yeah.
And when it finished, so okay, now that I have put that memory back into your mind, tell us a bit more about that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically in this one, the guy I was working for, I thought he was the devil incarnate. He was the most difficult, awkward person I'd ever come across in my life. At the end of the project, I did what any sane person would do. I got in my car and I put loud music on and I drove quickly in the opposite direction, vowing never to go back.
That is Black Sabbath, you have to say it. Black Sabbath, thank you.
Yeah, that's right. And it was part of the policy of the company I worked for that we would do a lessons learned, etc. And I realized based on this that I'd wasted an opportunity. I should have gone back, and I should have had more understanding at the beginning. I never, up to that point, I never tried to build a relationship, particularly with the project sponsor or anything like that. I would engage, obviously, but I never tried to understand them. And in this situation, there were certain extenuating circumstances that I hope I would have behaved differently had I understood, shall we say. But it was an important lesson for me, yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that is the importance of your book, precisely the fact that you learned from your mistakes and you were willing to share those mistakes.
I didn't feel, I was nowhere was I ashamed, because I've been talking about these stories to project managers, etc., through the PMO training, develop I've been doing. So it wasn't that I was ashamed of these stories. To me, they were, look, I made this mistake. I learned an important lesson. You got two choices. You can go and make the same mistake, or you could read this and go, oh, I should think about that, and maybe bypass that particular mistake and go and make better mistakes and learn better lessons. So that's kind of what it was all about.
Yes, the macro has said that. Actually, he has said that now people are paying me a lot of money as a consultant because I have so many failures behind me, and therefore that is what they call experience. But I know that, and that learning, I think, is important because I'm an academic. I'm trying to pass that on to my students, that the people that you see who are succeeding today have actually failed many times before. That is, otherwise it won't be interesting. The whole point about project management is that it is prone to failure.
But it's constantly challenging, that's for sure.
Exactly.
I'm going to pick up on one of the questions I just saw in the chat. I mean, it's the classic between waterfall versus agile. I've never done either, is my answer to that one. Every company I work for, I would say it's been some sort of hybrid approach that we've had. In fact, my last company, we talked about a fixed, lean, agile approach. It's called Flagile. And because it was what was necessary to demonstrate to our clients, our customers, what it was. It looked very waterfall, but it never was. There were iterative elements. There were predefined, we kind of like a tech tool behind it that allowed to predefine certain documents, etc. So it was like tech empowered, and we stripped down to the very basics wherever we could. So it's lean, and in amongst all of that were little agile activities. So my honest answer, I don't think I've ever done a waterfall project. In reality, perhaps one or two first I did, but for most of my career, it's been some sort of hybrid delivery. And there's great things from all of them.
Well, and coming back to some of the fun stories, I really like that hot air balloon one. I mean, that was a really good one. But also, I mean, throughout the book, you've used these contemporary colloquialisms and instances, and I think very early on in the book you talk about the theme song of the Lazy Project Manager, which is the bare necessities.
Yes. Well, that changed because I actually ran on LinkedIn. I actually ran a competition to see what the theme song was, and in the end, it was Mission Impossible was the winner for that particular time. But you can go and find that online probably still. I had nearly 2,000 people vote on LinkedIn for what is the top theme tune. I think it was Mission Impossible, Under Pressure by Queen, and then my favorite was Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. But yes, at that point, it was the bare necessities. It was Baloo the Bear, Doobie-Doobie-Doo, and what is the basics you need to be successful? And I guess I always feel that minimal viable product is a very kind of neggy term. It doesn't sound very great, but actually, what is the appropriate minimum that you need to do to deliver something, and why are you doing it any more than that? What is the gain for doing anything more than that? So yeah, it's a good song. That's my favorite Disney film ever. Although I have actually managed to get 400 project managers in Europe singing the song from Frozen, Let It Go, which is also a lot of fun as well. I do some crazy stuff when I do keynotes.
Yeah. What about the road to nowhere? That could be a good one.
Well, we are coming up to the end of the hour. Peter, would you like to give a brief about your upcoming books?
Yeah, so there's 3 underway. I mean, last year's the 21-day challenge was just amazing fun to do, the Projectless Manager, which we saw just now. Our book is coming out. I mean, everything's slowed down, and thank you. everything's slowed down in the publishing world. So there's a book that is delayed. It should have been out by now, but it's coming out in May. It's around business agility, about organizations being prepared to deal with this modern world. And the two I'm really excited about. So I'm just halfway through writing a book on AI in project management. You know, will it terminate project management or not? You know, what are the challenges? I'm loving that. I'm working with some tech providers who are into the AI market. It's an increasingly hot topic when I do presentations. And then the one that follows on from that is the one, as I mentioned, I'm working with this company, Perflow, which is looking at project team performance analytics, project team performance management, you know, looking at the people side. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, you look at the stats and, you know, like 70+% of all training that takes place in project management is what I call the kind of, you know, the hard elements, the mechanics of project management. Very little, well, not very little, or significantly little amount is all about the people side of things, and yet projects are successful because of people. So I'm really looking forward to that book as well, and they should be out end of this year and then early next year. That's the plan on those two. And AI, huge impact. You know, Gartner said 80% of what we do as project managers won't exist in 10 years. What the hell are we going to do? Well, we're going to deal with people. Excellent. Let's go back to that.
Great. So so this is the chance. Any last questions, anyone?
Okay. If I may say, I have no idea of time, but that is a cultural thing. Actually, I forgot what I wanted to say. It was quite intriguing to me to see where your book is more popular in the Scandinavia and Germany and all that. And I think that is if you were to rewrite the book, then I would I think that cultural item would be the important thing. I was actually not very surprised in hindsight after I heard them as to where the book is actually popular and where it is unpopular, because you've got all these more hierarchical environments and all that. But again, I think your book has this. It is important because we've got the emotional intelligence. Now we are looking probably to the cultural, understanding the cultural thing. But if you are emotional, you've got an EQ, probably you will get the CQ, whatever it is. And I think that is why the book is still relevant today, because it shows that you have to adapt, and you are lazy only because you are productive, in a sense that you change the way that you have to work, and you make sure that everybody else understands what are the rules of the game today. And that I think will. I think this book, as an academic, I would hazard to say that I could be recommending it for at least another 10 days. 10 days.
10 days, that's nice. 10 years. 10 years.
Take the 10 days now and we'll see. We are in lockdown.
Absolutely.
But, yes, 10
for me,
years.
the heart of it for me, I mean, you know, you've picked up on my style already, and, you know, I like to have a lot of fun. And so there's there's a little gift to everybody who's turned up. So you can you download that as my book on the Project Manager Who Smiled, the book, The Value of Fun in Project Management. So feel free to download that and share it with your friends if you like as well, if you like it. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
It's very kind.
Thanks a lot, Peter, for that. Thank you for joining us. As always, and as we knew, it was a lot of fun. Just before we leave, here are the details of the next book that we are doing. It is Tame Your Workflow. It is a completely, I would say it's a topic on the other end of the spectrum, very based on theory of constraints. It is an interesting read. We do have a discounted link for everyone to buy the book, which I will be posting in due course on both Meetup and LinkedIn platforms. So that's about it. Thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
And thank you for the freebie, Peter. Thank you.
I think he just left.
Nadia is still with us, came in first. So, I think that went okay, Himanshu.
Yeah,
Well done.
that went well. I just removed Nadia.
Ah, poor girl, doesn't really matter.
No, that was good. Let me just stop the recording as well.